Hi everyone, this is Kat of KatalystHolistic Life Coaching, bringing your life in alignment with you. I'm here today to do your weekly forecast of June 21st through the 27th. We've officially moved into the summer solstice and now the season of Cancer, but we also just have a lot going on this week, so we'll get into it. But welcome if you are new here. Thanks for tuning in. This weekly forecast just brings out a little tarot oracle message, and then we go over briefly some of the shifts that are happening astrologically. Not anything too in-depth with the aspects and those sorts of things, but just kind of how the planets are shifting and what energy that might show up as. So this is just kind of a general overarching energy. So it may or may not resonate with you, or you can just take the energy and run with it how you will. So without further ado, let's get into it because we got quite a bit going on here. And I apologize if you can hear the laundry running in the background. So hopefully that will stop here in a second. So for our weekly guidance message, we're working with 2 decks this week. So the first deck we have is the Spirit Song Tarot, one of my favorite decks to work with, especially if you love animals and stuff. I really, really like it. And it's a little more forward and direct too. It has like keywords that can really help you. And then our oracle card is the Prism Oracle, one of my new decks, my super absolute favorite because I love color. So I was excited that these wanted to come out for the message this week. So starting off with our first card is the Knight of Shells, or the Flamingo Spirit in the reverse. So normally this has to do with charm and passion. But what I kind of saw this as, immediately what I thought of when I saw this imagery was just like wobbling energy, like very, very wobbly, not very sure-footed, maybe like a lack of confidence, or just a little uncertainty, like not very sure-footed in what's being presented. And since this has to do with shells or the water element, you know, I felt like this was just kind of like on shaky ground, like something to do with emotions being on shaky ground. And then moving into the 2 of Feathers, or Gecko Spirit, having to do with decisions and direction. So there's something coming up this week that we're maybe not feeling so certain about ourselves with, like we think we've been ready to take the plunge, but we're still kind of skimming through the surface. We're still kind of working through the details, and you know, we're kind of still looking at our options, because 2 of Feathers isn't necessarily an action, it's realizing this more like fork in the road situation that we're in. Because next we have the 4 of Acorns, Walrus Spirit in reverse. So having to do with comfort and community. So there's a sense of like, no, that's not the word I want to use. Being incomplete. Normally the 4 of Wands or the 4 of Acorns has to do with this attainment and like everything kind of being in its place, and you know, the foundation all being there. And it's just like something is missing, and so it's making us really, really uncomfortable, and making us feel sort of out of place. And then moving into our last card from this deck is the King of Shells, or Seahorse Spirit in the reverse, having to do with harmony and integrity. So with him being in the reverse, the sense that I got was this kind of not showing up in full integrity, kind of either being emotionally manipulative or emotionally avoidant in some way, because normally like the King of Cups or Shells is very like very present with his emotions and very secure and stable in them. And so with these emotions kind of running in the background, we might be kind of pulling away more and not really like standing strong in our knowing and showing up. And so with all of these coming together, what really stood out to me was that this gecko, the decisions, the Two of Swords, was all kind of in the middle of all of this upside down energy, and having to make these choices, and how we relatively make choices. What do we do to, when we're kind of in this muck, you know, what do we do when it's like we're feeling like super uncertain and not on solid ground? What do we do when we feel like we're missing something and we just want to fill that void because we're so desperate to feel in a place of comfort? Or do we even sometimes like just decide to step back and not make decisions? Do we decide to just like not show up, not take the lead in our life because we somehow don't want to be seen as responsible for it, or it just seems too scary to make that decision? And I wouldn't say that this is asking us to make that decision, whatever this might be, whatever this fork in the road is for you right now. But I think it's starting to call into question, like, what is your relationship to making these hard decisions for yourself? Like, do you make a decision just like out of a sense of instability, like you're super uncertain still, but you feel pressured to make these decisions, you feel like you have to push these things forward, and so you kind of hastily make this decision even though you're not quite sure if that's what you really want, or maybe you make these decisions based off of a sense of lack, or like you feel like you're trying to get something out of making this decision, and so making a certain decision will make you feel whole. And that can even come from like not making a decision to choosing to, well, if I just don't decide, or if I just kind of see how it goes, then maybe it'll just all work itself out. But when we kind of resign to this passivity, like even though water is a really strong element right now, water also still has a lot of strength. Water can, you know, cut through stone over time and still has this immense power, and it doesn't always just flow gently. There's these rapids, there's you know, growth into the ocean, there's this expansion. So water doesn't just sit still all the time either. So I would say what's really coming forward is just, making sure that you actually spend time checking in with yourself. Like if you do feel this stuckness, if you do feel this stalemate, give yourself the time and space that you need, and acknowledge all of these different aspects that might come up. It manifests differently for everyone, and for different reasons. But you know, freedom of choice, free will, is one of our most divinely given gifts. It's kind of what separates us from everything else. And even though our path may be kind of laid out before us in a lot of senses, we get to choose our experience of it. And we get to define how we engage into that experience, what works for us and what doesn't work for us. Okay, so moving into the clarifiers with our Prism Oracle. So the first one that came forward was this navy blue, which is trust. Sorry for the shine of the light. But yeah, I see this as there's really something co-creating with you. Like you're not doing this alone, because there's this kind of meeting in the heart space. And we really do have to kind of trust in our own ability. I also see this coming back to our heart space, like trust that you have this inner knowing, trust that you have the ability to decide what is best for yourself. And ultimately, when you decide from that heart space, when you clearly see the picture, because I also see this as a kind of eye as well, when you see with that clarity, there's no really wrong decision. You're going to learn either way. And and you're still going to take it in stride because it's your choice, and you're going to feel so much more empowered because of that. All right, then the next card is purple, creativity. So really tapping into maybe you need to open your crown chakra a little bit and really start to open and connect to that divine source, that higher self, whatever you attribute that energy to, whatever it is that you work with. It could be time to start tapping into that wisdom and that knowledge. And it's also a really good way to move stuck energy. Like if you are at this crossroads and you don't know what direction to go, just start to kind of step away from it and create and do something else. I taught a kids group recently for Ariel, and all of them had this really awesome practice when I would ask them, what do you do when you're feeling frustrated, or what do you do when you feel like you're not progressing the way that you want to, or when you feel frustrated. And all of them said, I put it off to the side and I go do something else. Pretty much most of them. There were a couple that just said, they walk off, they calm down, but most of them said they leave it alone. They go off and they turn their attention to something else. So that's what I think this is calling to kind of get out of that stuckness with your mind a little bit, because that's also, feathers and the swords is that mental energy. So find ways to get unstuck from that mental energy. Okay, then the next card we have is this bubblegum pink. We have sweetness. So yeah, find that joy a little bit again, like that playfulness. And I see this kind of tied in with the flamingo as well, that pink energy. Like, this is like charm and passion. Like the Knight of Cups upright is like this offering of just like this really loving, passionate energy, whether that's you giving it out to something else or you taking it in. But enjoy the sweetness of life right now. Like it's summertime, and it's also Cancer, so it's also like, how are we nurturing ourselves? And Cancer is all about comfort too. So I see this sweetness as like creating that sweet and comfortable life for yourself, whether that's, treating yourself to baths or massages or going outside, going on fun trips, whatever that might be, even if it's maybe actually treat yourself with like sweets, not overly, but something like candy or something that just gives you like a sense of like, I feel really good about this, whatever that might be for you. Okay, and then our last card is yellow, hunger. So, not speaking of like an actual physical hunger, but what is actually driving you? Really reflecting on what are you hungry for? Like this could be that missing piece that you think isn't coming together, or like that's what you're trying to strive for, and that's why this decision is kind of holding you back. It's really asking you to reflect on like, what do you think will bring you that comfort, or what do you think you're lacking that you want to go out and get for yourself? And it doesn't have to do with anyone else. It doesn't have to do with trying to manipulate or control. It's about, what do you really hunger for in this lifetime? And we've all had that point where it's like, hunger is like a totally different feeling than just like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. It's like, no, I need this. I need this in my life. And it's not out of a sense of that we aren't whole already. It's that we know this is such a divine part of our lives that we want to go forth and attain it. Okay, so a lot to be said there, just from the overarching energy in the tarot and the oracle. And I feel this is really speaking to kind of Cancer energy as well. We do have a lot of shells, water energy. So let's go ahead and move on into that. So we do have Jupiter went retrograde on Sunday in Pisces. So we do have that in a water sign. Then we've got on Monday, the sun moved into Cancer. So we have the sun spending the next month in the lovely constellation of Cancer. So now we've officially marked in the summer solstice or winter solstice, depending on where you live. But we're now moving out of this kind of airy mental energy, kind of fast paced. Now we're starting to slow back down, even though Cancer is a cardinal or action oriented water sign. They're still also very they're much more cautious. They take their time in a lot of senses, and they really have to feel secure in themselves before they will be pressed to move forward, and you cannot move them any other way because then they won't come out of their shell. So Cancer in the tarot is represented by the Chariot. So the Chariot is that powerful forward moving energy, but it may not necessarily be like this charging sort of out of control energy. It's just like, okay, I'm taking the steps to move forward. How do I keep moving forward strongly? And we do have that crescent moon. We have the eclipse kind of energy. So we could be kind of drudging up from that eclipse experience. We could be kind of feeling the effects of it afterwards. But I do like to share, with the Ace of Cups, with this sun, we're moving into just more watery, like emotion, caring energy. We're looking at what does make us comfortable, what does make us feel secure, and are we really tending to those emotions? Are we really tending to this aspect of ourselves? And because Cancer is ruled by the moon, we're going to be shifting around whenever the moon shifts around. So our energy is going to be constantly shifting. And it's that question again of like, when do we come back to center and choose which way to go, even when we feel kind of shaken up? Where do we find that sense of security? Okay, so then today, which is Wednesday, we have Mercury is moving direct back in its home sign of Gemini, the twins. So now we're having this forward moving motion. Things might start to ease up a little bit in communication, and that brain fog maybe we've been having for a little bit, things are going to start getting clear again, and we're going to continue to take what we just learned from everything, including the eclipse, and start to implement that now. And it's a slow process because we do have to move out of a shadow phase period. But we are starting to move from the second decan of Gemini, which is the Nine of Swords. So that's all of our worry and anxiety. Again, like what's keeping us limited. And this is all the thoughts. This is, the nightmares, the worst possible scenarios. But now we have this chance to not be so immobilized by it anymore. Like we're starting to see a little more clearly, like, oh, this is what's holding me in place. I have a choice. I have the ability to move in a different direction. I just have to actually choose to take up that helm and do it for myself. Okay, so then Friday we have two events going on. We have a full moon in Capricorn happening, which says the end of a tough cycle approaches. So I would say, yeah, definitely moving out of this last energy with all this retrograde and everything kind of starting to slow down. Now it's just saying like, maybe we're getting a little breath of fresh air. We've been doing the hard work. We've been looking much more internally. And the full moon is going to really illuminate to us what that is. And I just got this new deck as well. This is the Moonchild Tarot, and I just wanted to use it to show what decade the full moon will be appearing in. So it's going to be in the first decade of Capricorn, which is the Two of Pentacles. So we're going to feel this sense of, our wants and our desires, as well as our security and our needs, are going to feel much more balanced. Capricorn is all about security as well, because it's the polar opposite of Cancer, but it's more about that material comfort, whereas Cancer is more about the emotional comfort. So they're similar and in those respects. And so we might feel a little bit able to come to that center of like, where is everything being filled on both sides? Like, am I a little more leaning towards these, physical aspects that are taking care of me, but am I depleting my emotional self? Or am I taking care of my emotional self, but I'm not really, taking care of myself in other ways? So this could be that kind of balancing of the scales. And we do have this moth here showing again this like death and transformation sort of phase. But we're going to feel this more equilibrium now moving forward. We're going to be able to, again, find that sort of balance within ourselves to be able to actually choose from a more logical, supportive standpoint rather than something that's overly emotional, which can definitely happen with Cancer as well. So paying attention to your emotions a lot, and not just stabilizing those, but stabilizing all aspects of yourself. Okay. All right. And so then meeting up with that on Friday, we also have Neptune, the planet of dreams and illusions and mysticism and just all things kind of Piscean and mysterious. It is in its home sign of Pisces right now. It is going to be for quite a long time still, but it is turning retrograde this week. So we've got these three planets in water signs. We've got two of them going retrograde. So we've got the Sun, we've got Neptune, and we've got Jupiter all meeting up in these water signs. And so it is a very watery week. And we could feel this push-pull of tides. And especially Neptune going retrograde, I don't really see it as, Mercury retrograde. We're kind of like, oh, okay, prepare. But with Neptune, it's kind of like, just take it all in. I see it as really beneficial because sometimes, especially being in its home site of Pisces, there is a lot of challenge of like going off into that dreamland and not really being in reality. And now with it kind of pulling back and maybe not being so strong, some of those illusions will start to kind of lift the veil a little bit, and we can kind of get a better sense of clarity and maybe have more of those aha moments. So it's going to be moving through the last decade of Pisces, which is the 10 of Cups. So moving through the 10 of Cups in reverse, this is all about when we reach that attainment, when we have, come to the final cycle, because, Neptune is moving through Pisces very slowly through this final phase till it gets to, when it finally moves into Aries, and then it'll be a whole new cycle. So we are finishing out this kind of point in our lives where we maybe have been lacking, or maybe we, think that there could be a sense of something missing, wherever you're at in your life. We're always having these drives, it's never over until everything, feels okay. And so wherever we're at in our lives, we could be spending this time really reflecting on what sort of illusions have I created around needing to obtain this, because this also has to do with emotional fulfillment, like family, and, you see the small hands there, and just like this utter, just like bliss and fulfillment and everything kind of in its place. And this is just kind of, maybe questioning, like, is everything really in place? Like, are you really content with where you're at? And also maybe bringing into question why you're not content. And in the sense also, like, if there is good reason to not be content, like if you're not really doing what, truly makes you happy, truly makes you feel whole in this life, then that's probably a good reflection. But this can also bring up where you're not appreciating what is around you. You could be creating this whole illusion right now that your life is, miserable, or you need to reach these certain things in order to have this fulfillment, or you need to, be a certain way, or, whatever that really manifests as. This could be saying, like, are you taking certain things for granted? Are you kind of sitting on the sidelines being very passive about your life, or are you actively participating in it and seeing the magic of it? Because there is magic everywhere. It doesn't take a certain amount of time or a certain amount of things, or all of, whether it be material, whatever. What matters most is, are you in it fully, completely, presently? And how are you experiencing that with the ones that you love as well? Are you taking them for granted? Are you taking your job for granted, or certain things? And this may not resonate for everyone. It could be other things are actually more dissatisfying, but it's just looking at both ends of the spectrum. Okay. So yeah, and then final thing we've got happening on Sunday, we've got a little taste of fire to kind of lighten the mood a little bit. So we have Venus, our lovely planet of just pleasure and joy and love, moving into the happy, lovely sign of Leo. So even just talking about it right now, I'm feeling like so Leo, is more of this fire sign, but it's also this very heartfelt, like sensuous, like sign. It's, it cares about, like, the, in a way, like luxurious things, like, because it wants to be put on a pedestal. It wants to be seen. It wants to be heard. It wants to be acknowledged for its kingly or queenly nature. So when we've got this Venus in Leo sort of energy, it's just more, I feel like we're going to be really just kind of feeling ourselves more. Even though we're kind of moving through this like confusing time, where things are kind of push pull, and we're maybe drowning in the water a little bit. We've also got this like invitation to be playful, because Leo's also the sign of the child part of our chart. So like the Leo house is like our children or our play. Like, how do we enjoy life? How do we live from our heart space? So again, like tapping into that, ooh, yeah, that sweetness. Yeah, that sweetness. Even look, matching with that kind of pink color. I love this color array. Those are some of my favorite colors. So yeah, like getting out there and like, dressing up for a night out, even if it's just by yourself, or going and spending time in the sun, giving yourself massage, whatever makes you feel honored and, that kingly, like, try to work to upright this energy, like help yourself feel more emotionally balanced, because you deserve it. You deserve the sweet things in life. And I see Leo also really tapping into that hunger energy as well. That need and that drive of like, yeah, I want this and I'm gonna get it sort of thing. Okay, so that's gonna be a little lightening on the load on Sunday. So even though there's a lot going on, and maybe it feels overwhelming at first, just remember to take some of that time out with Venus, maybe check in with where that's crossing in your chart, and maybe bring attention to that area where it may not be getting a lot of light or love right now. Okay. All right. So like I said, a lot going on this week, so please be gentle with yourselves. And even though we may not have a sure foot, even though water is just kind of shifting around, play in it. This is summertime. Like, enjoy the depths, enjoy the refreshing coolness of taking that dip from the hot sun. Even though it's kind of shocking at first, you feel so alive afterwards. So take that in and really enjoy it. I would say the overarching theme of this week is choose your experience. choose how you want to live your life. And learn about your power of freedom of choice. Learn about your power of making choice. Where does your choice lead? And your choice matters. So finding that relationship with that. All right. So thank you again for tuning in. If that really resonated with you, please comment below or maybe like the video, share it with others. I love to know your experience. You're also welcome to, I do personal readings, whether it be astrology or tarot. So if you want to see how these aspects could be affecting your chart more personally, you could reach out to me for those as well. I have other offerings through coaching, yoga therapy, all of those things that are good for the sweetness of life. So maybe if you need a body treatment, herbal treatment, whatever you are looking for, feel free to reach out. Also, if you would just like to tip or donate, my cash links are below. So thank you again, and we will see you next time for the following week. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.